Welcome to the Holistic Hive podcast. I'm so excited to have you guys here. This is one of my nearest, dearest providers and friends I've gotten to know over quite a few years.
Right.
So this is Susan McLaughlin. She is a I'll say pelvic floor, but I don't want to say that because I don't want to pigeonhole you.
Yeah.
A physical therapist. All about a line and movement, and we've worked so beautifully over all these years.
Yes.
And I think one of the reasons we've done so well is we realize this beautiful nature of how we can come together. And I think that's sometimes a struggle within our professions, and it shouldn't be. But I would love to have you introduce yourself to us and kind of give us your story and what got you into your work.
Sure. So I came into physical therapy a while ago. So I graduated from my program in 2001. So I've been at this for a while, but I started my practice, I went off on my own in 2012. So it's been a while, and that's when I started meeting you in more of the birth space. So as a pelvic health specialization, this perinatal period is just, it's so, it's just so nurturing and fun. So I really, that's a big part of my pelvic health experience. But then also, I do work with men and women who have pain issues in the pelvis. So whether that's pelvic pain, bladder pain, endometriosis, all of that. I mean, there's so much going on in the systems anyway, in the pelvis. So I'm seeing all of that, but I do like that big chunk of space is in the perinatal world. So, but what brought me to physical therapy, it kind of was really my own health journey. And I think that happens for a lot of people. I mean, for me, I graduated undergraduate in English. I thought I wanted to be a high school teacher. I don't know what I was thinking because it's very scary to me now. But after I graduated, I'm like, I'm not going to go right into teaching because I need to kind of find myself and that kind of stuff. And I ended up getting in a car accident. So from that car accident experience and just having the pain and just going through my own journey of going to my chiropractor, going to my PT, and just not getting that reduction in pain, I ended up having surgery. And honestly, it was like bing, no pain afterward. It was like the best thing I could have done, because at that time what I went through was like, what do I really want to do? And, I've always been interested in health and movement. I played sports as a kid. So I'm like, I really want to be in this industry of allied professionals. And I can't just keep dinking around. So I was like, maybe physical therapy would be a really good opportunity for me to get this piece of education that I was interested in to be a teacher, but I'd be able to really have more understanding of how the body works. And so I went through the physical therapy program at the University of Utah. And once I started working again, I ended up going through this whole chronic pain experience. And this was years. I mean, I don't know, looking back, it was probably 8 years, something crazy of just this chronic low back pain, hip stuff, SI stuff, And one thing that happened for me is when I started going into the niche of pelvic health, I was overwhelmed. I mean, it's there's so much to know. And so I was taking in all of this continuing education as much as possible to really understand. And I landed into this program that was more alignment based. And I was drawn to this person. Her name is Katie Bowman. People may have heard of her, but there was a lot of hot discussion going on because at the time, Katie's experience was saying, it's stop doing Kegels. It's not just about Kegels. That's not your pelvic health. It's, you really need to be able to understand the functional movement. And to me, it was like a light went off, because in some of the, you know, initial pelvic health courses, it really was very pelvic floor contraction, otherwise known as the Kegel experience. Like you're training like 100 times a day. You're doing it these different ways. And in my experience in working with my patients at the time, when I was working for Intermountain, it was like some people would do really well with it, but some people wouldn't. And I'd be like, "Are you doing your home program?" You know, and it's like, no, it just wasn't working. So why? You know, and you know, my own situation too, like just being, I haven't had children, but every once in a while I would leak urine with laughing really hard, and no way getting on a trampoline, and all of my sisters joke about it, right? And it's like, that's not normal, right? So it's like, I'm really interested in what this person has to say. So I ended up going through this restorative exercise specialist certification with her. And I really started to understand about how we move and use our body, and how that creates the body that we have. And so in doing just this, a lot of self-awareness and being more mindful with my movement, being more mindful of my nervous system, being more mindful of my tensions, in going through her program, I got out of pain. And I wasn't intentionally trying to get out of pain. But I just started being in my body differently. So I was like, this is fascinating to me. And so now as I work with people, I feel like, because of my personal experience, I'm approaching the system in a very different way, and that's really, as much as possible, trying to look at all of the systems, but really seeing the driver of the nervous system as just so hierarchical, which is like duh, but I think
that's amazing, and when we really get it,
because you know, I know, you know, traditional PT is like, do these strengthening exercises with a band and you know, and like heat and stem, and it's like, that's really sad that that's kind of what PT is known for. And when people do come to see me, it's a different experience. So many people will say, that's not what I expected, because really it is, in a way, unraveling. So it's not about doing 3 sets of 10 reps. It's about really becoming more embodied, like aware, bringing in the mindfulness to start to lay down new pathways for this whole nervous system experience. And so I feel like, you know, my path to working with people may not be for everyone, and it's like, that's why we have so many people out there, is you know, we want to find that fit, and so I just feel like being able to have my own practice kind of out of that realm of more of that medical model, kind of sickness model. I just feel like I'm really interested in health and wellness.
I think it's funny, I've done a couple recordings today. I started with a midwife, then I had a mental health therapist that specializes in postpartum period. And so we look at like this common theme, and I love that you start with going, this stage in life is such a stage of nurturing. And I feel that it's so important that as we have our babies, grow our babies, and as we have friends and family and loved ones that are growing their babies that we love and we nurture. And then we realize the postpartum body and period is forever. That was like a light bulb moment when I had heard that, and my youngest was like 10 when I really heard it. And I was like, oh, that explains so much. And then this beautiful piece of going, let's go inward. That was the mental health therapist where we finished, was if we can just be in our bodies. If we can actually get back out of our heads and go into our bodies, a lot will change. And so I love this mindset, and I love your journey of this, what could be very medical PT world. We apply things in a very rigid standard, and it's a downstream type thing. We'll work on these muscles, and I've always said, but what about the nervous system? And that's always been my mantra, is let's work on the nervous system. And so now it's to this very intuitively, we're going back into the body and helping reset those pathways of body can talk with brain because it's communicating. Brain can talk with body, and I'm going to honor, listen, and empower and support that, and then see true healing really unfold.
Yeah.
It's really something that I think is what is sweeping in a good way. I think is being demanded is another way I'll say that, from so many people in the public going, I'm not okay with this model anymore because I realize it's a sickness model. Yeah. And if I choose health, then I don't want people to step away from the model. I don't want to be like, it has a time and place. It does a great job, time and place. Sickness, emergency, please be there. To be healthy, to be well, we need to step outside that model and go, okay, how can I help build this up, this vessel that I have? And so to me, it's not only fascinating to listen to your journey, but to realize how much came within the learning for yourself. Yeah. That sometimes the true healing comes as we dive deeper and go, okay, now how can I apply this for others? I think it's also really important that you've said, and we talked about this just in a business mindset. I have an office with multiple doctors and this reach, and part of it's to allow me to teach and to have an impact within the profession as well. And for you, you've consciously said what I do is an art, which it always is, and I want to keep this art and work on my art and realize that providers are different. And that's a beautiful thing about providers. And so I'm curious, as you've looked at this, I know you brought in sound healing. Mm-hmm. I'd love to even go there because I love seeing the journey that you've had of what has a sound healing, like what took you to that, and how do you even integrate that in as well?
Yeah. Well, the sound healing modality that I certified in is called biofield tuning. Mm-hmm. And really what got me interested in that, funny enough, was planning a trip to Ireland. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to have an experience. We wanted to hire someone mm-hmm. to kind of take us to like the you always hear of Ireland as like the fairy nature place. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to hire someone who could take us to those areas. So when I was looking at this person's website, I noticed this modality mm-hmm. that they did, and so that seemed fascinating to me, and so I booked a session for that. But even that just looking at it, something sparked my interest. Mm-hmm. So I started just going down the rabbit hole of seeing what this modality was, mm-hmm. and basically the work is using tuning forks, mm-hmm. so using these frequencies, because we are electromagnetic. Mm-hmm. There's really nothing woo-woo about that. Mm-hmm. It's we are electrical and we are magnetic, mm-hmm. and we have our nervous system mm-hmm. and our heart. That's our electromagnetism, and our cells have a polarity, mm-hmm. and so the science aspect of it, like I do not have the math mind mm-hmm. to even understand octaves and all of that kind of stuff, but really what resonated mm-hmm. with me was when I experienced the tuning forks on my body and in my field. I could feel the resonance in my body. I could feel the shift in my body, and you hear that expression, our issues are in our tissues. Right. Well, our issues are also in our energy field as well. Mm-hmm. And so when we have these areas of stress, events, and life is stressful, we carry them in our body, but we carry them in our field. Mm-hmm. And so the brilliant thing about this work is we're working with a frequency, a tuning fork that has a frequency. And so when you bump into this stuck stress in the field, that frequency is being rung, and eventually what happens is what is there breaks up because of that entrainment. So it frees up all of the available, biofield energy, the biophotons, to bring it back into your physicality or your energy systems, however you want to look at it. So it's just very it's just a different way to tap into the health and integrity of our whole cellular system. So I mean, I've had some big shifts, and clients who come in have big shifts, and sometimes they're amazed that it's more like maybe their perspective on life or the emotion or they start to things they become more aware of to allow them to change. So it's not like sometimes pain is a big motivator. So people will come in because they have this or that pain, but it's like the perspective shifts for maybe that pain to I've noticed more emotional
release.
Yes, perspective changes over pain, but I have had a couple people with their pain change like right away. And
you look at and we'll stay at pain for just a second. Pain is so emotional. Like, it has a massive emotional component. You've had chronic pain. I've had chronic pain. Like, I know what it did to my life. Yes. And to be out of it, it changes everything. And I love the expression back to bioenergetic field is that just even go back to battery mindset. Like, if you literally have these blockages, you're not able to express your full energy. And that's like now energetically we get to be more connected, more whole, reuse all those reserves for healing, for connection, for a new perspective. Whatever the body needs, whatever the spirit needs, it now opens that up, which is really such a beautiful ability to have through a modality. Say, okay, your body is powerful, smart, intelligent. There's reasons, there's adhesions, for lack of a better term, or blockages. We're just simply releasing those. Yeah. And your body does the rest.
Yeah. Exactly. And the body, when given that opportunity in that environment, it knows what to do. And that's the thing. I think we want to think things, so that's fun. And I love the analogy of a battery because it's just really simple. And also, we need to charge our batteries. Right. But we also have the polarity. And we have that going back to our cells and the electrical potential. A lot of times what we're running on in this depletion, we don't have that electrical potential to take us into the healing part.
That's needed.
Yeah, and a lot of times we need to, clean house to make more room. It's like you can't, in one of the nervous system courses that I studied, her analogy was like, you have a pool and you have all these beach balls in the pool. Well, you can't swim laps. You can't swim in the pool that has all these beach balls. So we need to increase the capacity by removing the beach balls. And that's what our nervous system regulation does, but we don't usually have the opportunity to go into the regulation aspect.
I think it's so many times we talk about like removing interference, and I love this overlap because it really is, again, the body knows what to do. Whenever we say the body's going to do this, the most foolish thing we could ever say, and it really is going to allow the body to heal and repair from within. And I love this mindset of we remove to allow to function. We allow healing, whatever that looks like for them. When you go into this, I love this path that you keep on going down. It's more and more holism, more and more intrinsic within body. I'm curious with how does it overlap? Do you overlap, and do you keep them totally separate in practice? What do you do?
Oh, with the sound?
Yeah, for the sound.
Well, the sound is separate.
Yeah.
And I don't work with pregnant people with sound, because sometimes it can move things, and so if someone's not we just don't.
Extra safe.
Yes. Yeah. But as far as like the integration of like how I work. The nervous system piece, I have some kind of discussion with everyone.
Absolutely.
And it kind of depends, you know, and it kind of depends though.
Yeah.
But there's always that, you know, idea of input output.
Yeah.
Right? So that sensory experience coming in, whether that's the sensory from the inside or the environment, that is creating a motor output. So how can we change the signals to get a different output? And usually where that comes in is the mindfulness piece. Like, you know, we don't think about how really 95% of our day is on automatic.
Yes.
We just don't think about that. And our brain is predictive. So what happens is we're not getting correct signals that are happening in our body that are actually responding to current present day moment. And so that I bring in with everybody, because whether someone is experiencing pelvic organ prolapse after a delivery, or someone is coming in with low back pain that's been chronic, it really is the same conversation, because that first thing we need to do is connect the dots with being in the present moment to change the signal.
And not have your body think it's 5 years ago,
That's
2 years ago, 2 months ago, exactly, and
That's
respond to this that's no longer a signal. I'm curious, I'd love to talk men, because that's one thing that we just, unfortunately, the men get lost when it comes to pelvic floor. I had read a statistic that if you have low back pain, the chance of having a weak pelvic floor is like over 95%, and the correlation that's there. So when we look at men, what are the typical, not signs and symptoms, I know, but that's where, like, what normally will get them started, or what are the things you see more for function? I'd even rather talk function than signs and symptoms.
Well, I think as far as like what's drawing them to come see me, usually it's when there's pain in the penis or the testicles, because it's like, what the heck, but they're still trying to figure it out. And you know, the first line of defense with any urologist is always antibiotics for chronic prostatitis. And unfortunately, you know, our systems are such that the urologists are mostly looking at the organs and not this whole system that's working together. Unfortunately, because what 9 times out of 10 what's happening is tension. Right? So what's interesting to me, and I'm gonna kind of go away from the pelvic pain aspect of it, just for people, men who are coming in with hip stuff or back stuff. Look, guys, you get diastasis recti too. Okay, like, and I just see them transitioning on and off the table. It's like, dude, like, you're doming and you're gapping, and like, yes, you have had hernias, you know. So hernias and diastasis recti, which is that separation or the doming in the abdominal center. I mean, that is huge, and most of the men that I work with have something like that. That either they've had a hernia or they do have diastasis recti. But yeah, typically, what the men coming in have already gone through, seen their urologist. I've gone through the antibiotics, and I've just been Googling, and I noticed that pelvic floor tension is the cause of, this could be a cause of what's going on. And so usually people are finding me just from an internet search. But I do have I have a urologist. He's been really good at referring, but rarely do I have medical referrals. It's just people who are on their own search.
Unfortunately, because you're exactly right. It's like they've gone through this and they're kind of, okay, we'll try the antibiotics. It's still, well, obviously it's not an infection. Kind of learn to live with it is what a lot of the guys are being told. So if a guy is like, as they're getting up, they're seeing the doming, they can feel like, do that little crunch and put your fingers in your belly, and if you can reach in and feel a separation. So if that's what's happening, those are good signs. Are there any other things that you would recommend to say be proactive, men?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Awesome.
So I would just say if you know, first of all, if you're feeling like you need to pee more than or less than in an hour, if your stream, you're hesitating with your urine stream, or if you spray. If you notice any testicular swelling, if you get like any groin pulling type pain, those are usually the big ones. And then, you know, of course, like the bigger ones are like pain in the penis, pain in the testicles. Pain in the saddle, all of that is, you know, the sacral nerves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, now let's flip to women. If a woman's had a baby, would you recommend pelvic floor work no matter what, or is it it depends?
I would say no matter what.
A lot's changed.
A lot has changed, but I think here's the thing. I just feel like postpartum is an opportunity. It's an opportunity because the body has changed so much. It's like, let me get reacquainted with it in a new way. And it's nice if people are coming in prenatal. I have had more people coming in saying, hey, I want to prepare for delivery.
Awesome.
I'm like really excited about that because it's not pregnancy that caused the issue. It's how the body has been built up until pregnancy, and then you're growing another human. And that can be very dysregulated.
Right, exactly. On that tissue that probably isn't already healthy and connected and communicating like it should.
Right. So all of the internal tensions are incubating this babe.
Yeah.
And so for me, I love it even to just drop in and have a better understanding of how the core system is working, because unless you have a really good coach in a sport or a really good personal trainer who has really done some research in understanding this integration of our core system, which is mouth to anus, and our ring muscles that are supporting it, because our whole core is that. Our core is, I'm speaking to you with my core right now, and really being able to understand those dynamics, because that when you know that, you bring that into function. And just how I always start with breath, because breath is our window of range of motion to the muscles of the pelvic floor, the diaphragm, the core, our abdominal muscles, and it's also our window into the autonomic nervous system. So it's something that we don't think about because we don't have to. That's our autonomic nervous system working. We don't have to think about breathing, but it's very valuable when we bring it in because it helps us be in the present moment. So what is moving when we breathe? Is pelvic floor moving? Mostly it's not, because we kind of have a tendency, because our survival responses are, our survival responses are holding, and that's in our diaphragm too. So yes, I would say it's nice just to get that reacquaintance of, how is my pelvic floor contracting? How are my abdominal muscles contracting? What is a contraction? Because we have a lengthening contraction, right? And we have a shortening contraction. They're both contractions, but how are they doing that voluntarily? But what is happening with the involuntary response? So, when we laugh, cough, sneeze, we should have that involuntary shortening contraction that's helping to support and stabilize. When we urinate, when we have a bowel movement, birthing a baby, our muscles are lengthening. So is that innate reflexive response there, yes or no? That's good to know.
I was gonna say it's a huge way to say that, because now it helps us understand in that involuntary state, like the cough, the sneeze, when it catches me off guard, the answer is it shouldn't catch you off guard. You shouldn't have to brace to sneeze.
Right.
And if you're having to brace to sneeze, then intuitively your body's not following that innate reflex like it should.
Yeah, and then also, in order to retrain the system, it's nice to know what are those awarenesses or those tools that until my system knows how to get there, I can cue it appropriately, rather than the scale. This is what I see is our responses typically to living our life is overdoing it, because we over recruit, we over recruit and compensate. So when we know, we can unfold that, so we scale it to the task, rather than I'm just doing my big recruitment for everything in my life. That's huge.
I was gonna say that's powerful there.
It's powerful
because one's training and reintegrating the nervous system appropriately, and one is an overreaction, which in some ways even reinforces this fight or flight sympathetic response in our body.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's and I've had so many people, all we've done is really have a conversation about understanding the breath and bringing it into the day. And we can do, I could give them other things to do for a home program. I've had, I don't know how many times people come back and say, I didn't do my floor routine, but I remembered what you said about my breath. And I became aware of that in the day. And breath is voodoo, because I'm not having pain and I'm not leaking urine. I don't know how many times I've heard that.
That's so cool.
It is like,
it makes so much sense.
Yes.
Okay, so now let's flip, because I love what you say. I completely agree with you. It's an opportunity postpartum that everyone should get their pelvic floor looked at, worked on, reacquainted with, and learn how your body's changed. Our bodies are powerful, amazing, that it was able to make a human, grow a human, birth a human, and now get reacquainted. Now we'll say the women that missed out on that opportunity because unfortunately the providers weren't around, and they're now mid-40s, mid-50s, mid-60s. At that point, I know the answer is still going to be do it now. And I guess as you get older, what are some of those key indicators, hopefully when it's not too late? But again, prolapse is a great example of an extreme. But what can we start helping to say, okay, you're still postpartum. Yes, your kids are 20s, 30s, 40s, but here are some things that still aren't normal that you've accepted, that you were told that was normal. Can you help with that?
Well, if you go down the aisle for incontinence. The incontinence, it's gotten pretty huge now. And we've really normalized leaking, where you can just wear your pad and no one can really see through it in your pants anymore, so it's all okay. Any type of leaking is not an experience that you have to go through, and really being able to understand the dynamics of what is involved in continence can really, anyone can make the change. You really just have to be more aware of it. So leaking, also urinary urgency, going from grocery shopping, coming into your driveway and feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm going to pee my pants, and you're running to the toilet, and sometimes you make it and sometimes you don't, like not having any control. That is a nervous system issue. That's a behavioral change that really we want to take some time to address. And then also feeling heaviness in the like almost like for women, if they've used a tampon where it kind of feels like it's riding low or coming out, that's a kind of a normal, or I should say a common sensation that people would describe with pelvic organ prolapse. So all of these, and with prolapse it's a little different because really we are looking at, is it mild, moderate, or severe? Yeah. So really it does depend on the integrity of the tissues. Yeah. But if there is noticeable change where in the morning you're fine, but at the end of the day it drops, there's a big likelihood that you still have enough elasticity and movability in the tissues that you can do really well with conservative approach.
I think that's so important to say. Is I unfortunately I hear it so often. It's like, well, I just had it, like I had the bladder sling, I had this. It's like just that it's just what we do. Yeah. And the answer is, well, we should be on. I saw someone who specialized in pelvic floor work, and I worked with a pelvic floor therapist. That's what we do, because then we can really save those surgeries for the ones who really need them.
Right.
And again, time and place, I want to be really careful that I'm mindful to say that. There is a time and place for these surgeries.
There is.
And yet, how many people are getting these surgeries that don't necessarily, it's the best outcome for them, or even the best option for them. So then they keep on having other issues, and now it's been compounded by a surgery.
Right.
And so I think it's really important to say, like, I really appreciate this conversation. I appreciate this opportunity to talk, because it's really one that I'm a big believer we shine lights on things that need that extra, like, we don't want to, heaven forbid, we talk about our pelvic floor, we talk about sex, we talk about mental health, like all these things that need to be talked about. Yeah. We remove shame, we remove guilt, and that allows curiosity, that allows us opportunity to lean in. And I think for so many women, we've been taught mentally, like we just finished as well, and we'll share that one, is just kind of how you feel is what it is. And it's like, no. And with our bodies, well, you've had a baby. It's like, no, our bodies are much more powerful than that. And so I really love and appreciate this opportunity to bring this conversation and say it really is an opportunity for all of us to go and reconnect within our bodies in such a beautiful mindset. Bring in breath work, bringing in alignment, bringing in the nervous system, and realizing all of it has to come together. Is there anything that you would say is just, even for someone who's ready to get started, what is something that either just going inward, what would be an advice you say, other than making the phone call, get with a therapist? How would you recommend they find the right therapist in addition to you? Would be a great way. And then what can they do in the meantime?
Yeah. I think, first of all, we here in the whole Salt Lake Valley have so many more pelvic health providers than we used to. So we have, for people who are looking for a pelvic health physical therapist and you have good insurance and you want to use your insurance, there are people who are at the University of Utah, people who are within the Intermountain system, and then there are, Mountain Land clinics and other clinics in the valley that do take insurance. And then there are a spattering of us who have our own private practices, and for me it's a flat fee, it's an hour fee. And in fact, I just had a client who, he came from the University of Utah and his insurance stopped paying for it, and his bills were $500 for an hour, whatever 45-minute session. It's like I charge $120. Right. It's always $120, and it's like I think sometimes people just need to look at their health plans and just see, people with health savings cards. It's so much easier to be able to do that. And sometimes coming to see an out-of-network provider can be cheaper in the long run. But if you have good insurance, we have really, really good people out there. So I think, if you're interested, you can reach out to me. I have a provider list. I should give you a provider list.
I would love that. Yep. I would love that.
I have our pelvic health provider list, and you can find people that way. And I just think the biggest message that I want to say is you're not broken. You are not broken, and your body has not failed you. That it is all right here, and you know, you can make the changes that you desire.
Thank you. It's
Yeah.
a perfect way to finish, and it hits home because it's so true, and it's what we often get called hope dealers. And what I love that is that there's so much hope. There's so much that can still change and improve, and our bodies are powerful beyond what we
That's
give
right.
them. Give them the ability sometimes to think that they can do. So we're so thrilled. Thank you so much for being here, Susan. I appreciate it. Look forward to future.
Yeah.
And definitely to reach out. What would be the easiest? Send them to your website?
My website is probably the best, which is alignforhealth.com. Since I started my private practice, I've written a blog, and I used to write an informational blog about something monthly. Now, I'm not as good about getting one out, but I have a search feature on my website.
Awesome.
So a lot of people have been able to get some good information from my blog.
Perfect.
I'm not an active poster on my social media, but I am on Instagram, Aim for PT, and then my Facebook is Align Integration and Movement.
And I'll put all that in the show notes for you as well, but thank you for sharing that. I'd love to know that there is a blog, because then that gives the ability to say all that amazing information you've shared, it's there.
Yeah.
So go look for it and really find advocates, find supporters, find people who are willing to stand up for your health and really say there's so much more that can be.
That's
Your
right.
life can be even better than it is, and seek those people out, because they're going to be the ones that empower you and help you get to those levels in quality of life that you can have. So thank you guys for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.